Hey writers, welcome to the Muse Challenge Study Night. This is the study night for our immersive prose workshop, and that is coming to you February 1st at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You're going to want to register for this full workshop below because we have so much ground to cover, and this study night is going to give you some really valuable tools and insights to walk away from because we're going to edit some of my own work together. But I want you to have the full toolbox of all the methods and techniques that I'm going to teach you in the full summit. So I don't know if you saw my last video. If you didn't, check it out with the link below. But we talked about some of the problems, 5 deadly mistakes, I guess you could say, that slow your prose down and make them a bit boring or dry to read. And just to recap those things, number 1, using weak, indirect words and sentence structures. Number 2, using way too much repetition, saying things multiple times in different ways. Number 3, info dumping. Number 4, using big vocabulary just for the sake of using big vocabulary. And number 5, not taking character voice into account. So tonight we're going to edit a piece of my work together, and we're going to just go over how can we spot some of these things, right? Because a lot of this work takes place in the editing process. I want to recommend to you guys not to overthink this when you're in the writing process, okay? I heard someone say recently, and I think this is a pretty popular saying among writers, is the first draft, the goal is to just make it exist. And that's so true. We don't want to overthink every little thing and be slowing ourselves down as writers by editing while we're in the creative process. Just let those creative horses run. We're going to do a lot of this work in the editing process. So let's dive into the computer together. We're going to see what we can do when we take a piece of my own writing. This is from my latest work in progress, and make the prose stronger and easier to read, more addictive to read. It's going to make your reader want to stay up just a little bit later to read that next chapter. So let's go. So I want to give you guys a feel for how I use this in my own work. So I opened up my Google Doc here, and in this document, I have a piece of my work in progress. I just finished this novel about a month ago, and I've been really deep in the editing process the past several weeks. So this is perfect timing for me. We're going to keep all of those things we just talked about in mind, all those problems, and we're going to look for them together. So remember, we're watching for weak, indirect words and sentence structures. We're watching for too much repetition, info dumping, using big vocabulary, not taking character voice into account. So let's read through this together and then discuss what problems we can spot, first of all, and then we're going to look at how we can fix them. So I'm going to just read this through, and I'd love for you guys to comment live over in the chat. I'm over there with you. Tell me what you spot. Tell me what you notice as I'm reading through this, because I'm going to be reading your responses in real time. I walk into the living room to find my mother seated in front of the TV, a blank expression resting on her face. Her lips coiled into a tight frown. Her short ginger hair is tucked behind her small ears, and she looks stiff and uncomfortable, sitting there by herself. She swirls the red wine in her glass absent-mindedly as she stares at the television. "You were pretty quiet at dinner. Is there anything on your mind?" I ask. "I thought that's what you wanted," Mom replies, her tone hard and irritable as she stares straight ahead at the TV. "For me to stop talking to you." "Mom, you know that's not what I want. I don't know what you want from me," I say, a rawness on the edge of my tone as I stand there, locked and loaded as I stare at her. "I don't even understand why you came here in the first place except to tell me off about my marriage and my efforts with the ranch." "If you want me to leave, just say the word and I'll go," Mom huffs. "Mom, it's not that. I just don't understand what it is you want from me. You seem unhappy." Mom says nothing. She sits there rigidly in front of the television, seeming distant and preoccupied as she watches the soap opera indignantly. When she doesn't respond, I take a slow breath, standing to my feet. "Look, why don't you come to the dance Sunday night?" Okay, so there we go. This is a pretty solid exchange. We get a flavor that there's some conflict happening here. Obviously a disagreement between mother and daughter. But there's some glaring issues that just went past. Comment in the chat. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you noticed. Right away, I want us to take a look at, first things first, repetition. And I want you guys to get used to going through your work like this. Don't try to fix everything at once. Let's break it down step by step. So first, we're looking for repetition. All right, let's start from the top. We walk into the living room to find my mother seated in front of the TV. So we're going to just highlight that. My mother seated in front of the TV. Then we have, she's sitting there. We see what her expression is. She swirls the red wine in her glass absentmindedly as she gazes at the television. Going to highlight that. So she's sitting in front of the TV. She's gazing at the television. Mom replies, her tone hard and irritable as she stares straight ahead at the TV. So there's our third mention of the same thing. Going further down, and this isn't the same because we're not talking about the mom anymore, but when we have this sentence here, I stand there locked and loaded as I stare at her. That is another repetition of someone staring or eye movement. That's something I look for a lot in my own work. So we'll highlight that in a slightly different color. We'll do that in green because even though it's not the same character doing the same action, it's very similar and it sounds very similar. So we don't necessarily want all these descriptors to sound the same. She stares, I stare, she stares, she gazes, she looks. You get my point here. It starts to all sound the same. So then we continue down. Then, here we go again. Mom says nothing. She sits there rigidly in front of the television. So let's highlight that. Preoccupied as she watches the soap opera indignantly. Let's highlight that. So now let's look at how many mentions do we have of the mom watching television. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 mentions of a character doing the same activity in just this small amount of writing. This isn't really that much, but we have a lot of mentions of the same character doing the same action. So we're going to want to pare that down. It's nice to mention what the character is doing at the outset of the scene. And maybe we'll even follow up with it later in the scene, but we certainly don't need 5 mentions of it. And then, like I said, we can also keep a lookout for, are there other characters doing similar actions? Because then it all starts to sound like everyone's doing the same thing over and over again here, right? So now let's take a look for a couple different things. We're going to look for saying what we actually mean, especially in the dialogue tags, okay? So you were pretty quiet at dinner. Let's start with where our main character first comes in. You were pretty quiet at dinner. Is there anything in your mind? I ask. Now this is okay because she is asking a question. So we are saying exactly what's happening. The character is asking a question. However, the way this is phrased could be a little bit stronger, because we can tell she's a little bit hesitant. She's approaching someone who's kind of stiff, locked and loaded. It seems like there might be a confrontation about happening. So we might want to use a word that's a little bit stronger than I ask. Another thing that I would like to see in this sentence here is for this to be broken up. It feels like this should be the beginning of the thought, and then there should be a tag, and then this should be the end of the thought. So I would probably change that. We're going to strengthen that. So let's highlight that in red. I thought that's what you wanted, Mom replies, her tone hard and irritable as she stares straight ahead at the TV. So obviously that's a pretty long tag to be in between this sentence. I thought that's what you wanted. Mom replies, her tone hard and irritable as she stares straight ahead at the TV for me to stop talking to you. See how that flow is kind of like, I almost am forgetting the first half of what she said because the tag is so darn long. So we'll want to pare that down. This part is okay though. Her tone is hard and irritable. We can get a picture for how she's feeling. But again, we might want to strengthen this a little bit more. We're definitely going to want to pare this down so it's not as long. So let's just continue through here. Mom, you know that's not what I want. I don't know what it is you want from me. I say a rawness on the edge of my tone as I stand there locked and loaded as I stare at her again. This is a little bit too run on, especially chopping up the sentence, having this tag mid-sentence to break it up. It's just causing the sentence to feel too run on to have a tag this long smack in the middle of the sentence. So also, I say isn't really the best descriptor for exactly what's going on here. We can tell that our main character is exasperated. Mom, you know that's not what I want. So this is a little more than just saying something. We're going to want to strengthen that. So we'll add a highlight there. Moving on, if you want me to leave, just say the word and I'll go. Mom huffs. Is she huffing? I don't know. She doesn't really seem like that would be exactly the descriptor I would use there. She's a little more despondent and cool. So we might want to change that. Mom, it's not that. I just don't understand what it is you want from me. You seem unhappy. And then we don't have any tag. So we might want to add a tag there. It feels like there should be a tag right about here. That's where I would add a tag. So we're just going to make a little highlight there. I'd probably add a tag where I put that red marking. Mom says nothing. Now this is something I wanted to talk to you guys about because one of the things I've really weeded out of my writing over the years, and I used to do this all the time, is saying what the character is not doing rather than what they are doing. So mom says nothing. So we're telling you what is not happening. See what happens if we didn't have that. Let's say mom just sits there rigidly in front of the television, seeming distant and preoccupied. See, we understand she's not saying anything. Why? Because she's not saying anything. But we don't need to say first, she says nothing, and then proceed to tell you what she is doing. In most cases, like 9 times out of 10, we can just proceed to exactly what the character is doing. When she doesn't respond, I take a slow breath, standing to my feet. This is a little secret redundancy in here. See if you guys can spot it. Standing to my feet. Well, naturally. So if a character is standing, we know that they're standing to their feet. So we can just say standing or getting up or getting to my feet. So these are like really small grammar nuances now, and I know it can be a pain to go over all of that, but those are little things you can notice and tighten in your work. Okay, so we highlighted quite a bit. One more thing we want to go over here is info dumping. Okay, so let's look for info dumping. You're going to spot it pretty quickly, and I think a lot of you already have. I walk into the living room to find my mother seated in front of the TV, a blank expression resting on her face, her lips coiled in a tight frown. Her short ginger hair is tucked behind her small ears, and she looks stiff and uncomfortable, sitting there by herself. She swirls the red wine in her glass absentmindedly as she gazes at the television. That's a lot of description about what mom is doing here. What's important in this scene, and this is what we have to identify whenever we're editing. What is important here? What's important is that mom is acting despondent. She's acting kind of irritated. She's ready to argue. She's also kind of ignoring the main character. She's watching TV. She's being a little bit passive aggressive. So, seated in front of the TV. Okay, that's where she is. We need that because we need to understand where the character is positioned. A blank expression resting on her face. Maybe we would even keep that, or the lips being coiled into a tight frown. I would keep one or the other. I wouldn't do both. But her short ginger hair is tucked behind her small ears, and she looks stiff and uncomfortable sitting there by herself. We already know she's by herself because we haven't mentioned anyone else. She swirls the red wine in her glass absent-mindedly. We don't really know that she's absent-minded as she gazes at the television. All of this is just a lot. This is a lot of description. And we don't need all of it. We only need a few things to set up the tone of the scene. All right, so we've made a lot of edits here, as you can see. Info dumping, not really saying exactly what we mean, some repetition. You get the gist. Now we're going to move on and see how we can tighten this paragraph, and we're going to go over the changes we made. Okay, guys, I just want to stop for 1 second here and let you know, if you're enjoying this, make sure you register for the full Muse Challenge Summit below. This month, February, this upcoming month, February 1st, we're starting our immersive prose workshop, and it's going to be truly amazing. This community is a growing community of impassioned writers that are all cheering each other on. We're in live chats every day, doing writing sprints, bouncing ideas off each other, finding beta readers, critique partners, accountability partners, and sharing so many different new ideas. The challenge this coming month is going to be really focusing on making our prose shine. So we're going to be sharing lots of editing tips and going over so many different techniques in the summit. I'm going to be showing you how I edit my own work, and this study night here is really just scratching the surface. I wish that I could share more here, but it would take way too much time. But in the summit, we're going to condense everything into a really powerful toolkit for you to walk away from. You're also going to get an e-booklet with key takeaways, prompts, and exercises for writers that are going to help you take your prose to the next level. Okay, so just wanted to let you know, make sure you sign up with the link below, because you are absolutely not going to want to miss it. Tell me over in the chat if you're going to be at Muse Challenge, because I can't wait to see you there. Okay, let's dive back into it. So here we are, example 2. Let's read it together. My mother doesn't look away from the TV as I step into the living room. She is poised stiffly on the sofa, a glass of red wine in hand. You were pretty quiet at dinner, I point out gently. Is there anything on your mind? Mom frowns as she watches a couple of actors argue. I thought that's what you wanted, me to stop talking to you. Mom, you know that's not what I want. I let go of a weary sigh. I don't know what it is you want from me. I don't even understand why you came here in the first place, except to tell me off about my marriage and my efforts with the ranch. If you want me to leave, just say the word and I'll go, Mom responds coldly. Mom, it's not that, I finally confess. I just don't understand what it is you want from me. You seem unhappy. Mom slides me a quick glance, but only continues to stew in her silent irritation, swirling the wine in her glass. Look, I say finally, my voice soft. Why don't you come to the dance Sunday night? Tell me what you think of it. Obviously, I don't really like to say this is the good example, this is a bad example, because I genuinely believe that we can learn from both of these. You don't have to have a ton of description, but you also don't have to be too stripped down in your writing either. You can find a happy medium. You can find what works for you. You can make so many different versions. It doesn't just have to be a split test between example A and example B. So you can find a happy medium here, but let's go over what we did. Right away, we're setting up the scene perfectly right here. And this is all the description we need. My mother doesn't look away from the TV as I step into the living room. Right away, we know that Mom is ticked off. We know that some animosity is in the atmosphere here because of this sentence. All we need is this one little paragraph to set up this scene. She doesn't look away as her daughter steps into the room. She's poised stiffly on the sofa, glass of red wine in hand. Okay, we understand what's going on perfectly. You were pretty quiet at dinner, I point out gently. So see, we changed this from what we had before. We had I ask, which she is asking, but this is actually what she's doing. She's pointing something out. She noticed something and now she's pointing it out to her mother. So this is really exactly what's happening. We're finding a more specific way for her to pose this question to her mother. She's pointing out, hey, I noticed this. You were pretty quiet at dinner. Is there anything on your mind? Mom frowns as she watches a couple of actors argue. So we're showing she's still not making eye contact. She's still pretty ticked, but we aren't repeating her staring at the TV 5 times. I thought that's what you wanted, me to stop talking to you. We left that as a complete sentence, so it flows much better. Mom, you know that's not what I want. I let go of a weary sigh. Better descriptor. Better descriptor for how the main character is feeling. I don't know what it is you want from me. I don't even understand why you came here. All right, rest of that sentence. If you want me to leave, just say the word and I'll go. Mom replies coldly. Much better. She is replying coldly. She's not really huffing, because that is something I would probably use in a little more of a heated argument, or someone's being sarcastic. But here we have two kind of, the mom's almost stonewalling her here. So we don't want to necessarily use the word huff. I would use responds coldly. And that's what she's doing. She's responding. She's not answering. She's not just saying, Mom, it's not that. I finally confess. Again, exactly what she's doing. She's confessing. Finally, we're getting to the crux of it. She's about to reveal, this is what I really think. I think you're unhappy. And I don't know why, but I think you're unhappy. Mom slides me a quick glance, but only continues to stew in her silent irritation, swirling the wine in her glass. So now we changed Mom says nothing, which is telling us what the character is not doing. It's just describing the absence of something. And we've instead shifted over to saying what she is doing. She's stewing silently in irritation, swirling the wine in her glass. Look, I say finally, my voice soft. Why don't you come to the dance Sunday night? I like this better. I say finally, my voice soft. And then overall, we've just eliminated a ton of description, a ton of redundancies, and info dumping. So those are some of the main things I look for. And this is my exact process that I use when I'm editing my own work. So writer, I hope that this helped inspire you to go forth and write all the prose. See what you can make, play with it, try new things, explore. And remember, most importantly, do not be hard on yourself. This is so much of this process happens while you're editing. So don't beat yourself up while you're writing. Just enjoy the process of writing. And the more you learn these things and try new stuff and experiment and see what works for you, the more it's just going to naturally integrate into your writing. Remember to register for the full Muse Challenge Summit. We are this month, February 1st, we're having the immersive prose workshop. You're not going to want to miss it. I'm going to be giving you a complete toolkit with everything you need to write immersive prose and keep your readers up past their bedtime. We're going to be covering how to say what you actually mean in an artful way, how to eliminate repetition, how to avoid info dumping and instead communicate through conflict and dialogue, how to avoid big vocabulary just for the sake of using big vocabulary, instead communicate mindfully and powerfully. And lastly, tailoring prose depending on whose point of view it is and being mindful of your character's voice. We're going to be covering that and so much more in the summit, so you don't want to miss it. Not only are you going to be getting access to the live summit on February 1st, but you're also going to be getting the archive of the previous trainings that have happened in December and January, the Dynamic Dialogue Challenge and the Start Your Story Challenge, all of that, which is an immense amount of training. It's awesome. And 2 ebooks to go with it. On top of that, you'll be getting access to the exclusive Patreon community and Facebook group where we have live chats and so many cool things going on in there. Writers are in there every day doing writing sprints, bouncing ideas off of each other, sharing work, giving feedback and advice, and doing critiques and beta reading. All kinds of stuff happens inside of the Facebook group, and I would love for you to be part of that exclusive community on Patreon and Facebook. So get access by going to the link below, clicking register. That's going to take you to my Patreon where you can support at the Muse Challenge Summit level. Okay guys, thank you so much for joining me for this study night. It was so good to chat here with you. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you took some notes and got some value out of this teaching. I will see you at the Muse Challenge Summit. And until then, stay creative and keep writing.